Of mixed gender play. I'm lucky the sport I come from is tennis, and the only major tennis major I ever won was the 1977 mixed doubles French Open with John McEnroe. This is sort of tragic, but it was his first major win, and it was my last. That was trying not to be bitter about it, but that's the situation. Anyway, we've got two exciting conversations coming your way about the future of soccer in the U.S. and the meaning of play with Kobe Bryant. If you were lucky enough to have been here earlier this morning, he had a terrific panel with kids. And our first set of announcements from organizations being honored as Project Play champions. That's all ahead and plenty more. But to get us started, I'm pleased to welcome back Tom Farrey, the Executive Director of the Aspen Institute Sport and Society Program, to introduce and moderate this first panel, Soccer in the U.S. What story can we tell by the 2026 World Cup? Come on up, Tom.
All right. Thanks, Mary. So, hello, you having fun? Yeah. Is this an okay party? Yeah. All right, good. So this is, we're going to talk soccer here, which is, okay, a little bit of a bias. I love soccer. My sons play it. You know, Saturday mornings is watching NBC Sports and Rebecca Lowe and Kyle Martino and all the rest break down the action. So, you know, this was a tough summer for guys like me who love this game and really want the U.S. to achieve at the World Cup level, at the men's World Cup level, in at least the same manner as the women have achieved, right? You know. And it was tough because the team failed to qualify for the World Cup this year. It was knocked out by Trinidad and Tobago in the qualifying rounds. And on the day of the championship, won by France, was a front page story in the New York Times on a participation drop in soccer of about 600,000, according to the Sports and Fitness Industry Association, over the past couple of years. You know, but the good news is that the seeds of systems level reform are starting to take hold. From every crisis is born an opportunity. And in this session, top officials from the U.S. Soccer Federation and the French Football Federation are here to share ideas on how to build a system that promotes both development and participation. How do we align these two? Can we train more coaches and make more room for late bloomers, kids from lower income homes, and free play, as France did in transforming its youth model several decades ago? They weren't always the high performing national team that you saw this summer. So I'd like to bring up Ludovic Debru and Nico. Ludovic is the head of institutional affairs for the French Football Federation. He designed the youth system, or helped design the youth system that supported the development of players like Kylian Mbappe, who was one of the breakout stars of the World Cup this year, as well as other national team players. And he played professionally a few years ago?
A long time ago.
Long time ago, okay. And next to him we have Nico Romain, who is the Chief Sport Development Officer for U.S. Soccer, and he has revamped youth coaching for U.S. Soccer, done a terrific job in pushing that envelope forward. And he's the former head of education for the Dutch Soccer Federation. So welcome to you both. Let's start with you, Ludovic. How satisfying was it to win this year's World Cup?
Yeah, of course, there are moments that are better than the other, of course. I think it's symbolic of our system, even if a World Cup it's each 4 years. But since there were two big changes during the mid-90s, it was the Bosman rulings, who has totally opened wide the transfer market in Europe, and also the reform of the Champions League, who has totally changed the model of the top European club. And since this time, there were 6 World Cup, and we were finalists at least 3 times for 2 victories, and the same for the Euro. And we are also the first nation for exporting players in big championships, and the most valuable also nation for transfer players. But it's always the same over and over. It's to have better players, you need better coach. It's not a name, it's a result.
Yeah, but it all came together. So talk to us about what changes were made, what key components were put in place with the youth model, and how that helped develop the base of players who we saw play so beautifully this summer.
I think that the first thing to understand is that in France the model is through clubs. So we have 16,000 clubs. They are all registered at the federation. And they are open to everybody, no matter your incomes. Okay, it's very important to say this. And the second key component is...
Is it free, or what's the cost of playing at the community level?
It's, in fact, there are some helps, even if you have no... no matter the age, there is a time for game, challenges, and educational. You start by the educational to go to football, in fact. So at 6 years old, it's 40 minutes games and challenges, and there is 3-a-side or 4-a-side, no substitute, no goalkeeper, okay? Equal time for everybody. At 8, it's several teams on the same pitch. There is no ranking, so on the same place. It's 50 minutes games and challenges, and you start about 15 minutes of educational. In fact, we have a national educational plan. It's a tool. We have a toolkit for the clubs to help them to build their project. In fact, and it's around the rules of life. So it's rules of life is the health, citizenship, and the third one it's ecology, environment, and rule of play, the fair play. Rule of the game, fair play, the respect of referee, and the culture of football. So we always use these tools in our training session or games. So at 8 years old, it's 3 or 4 teams on the same place. It's ranking only for a day, okay? And it's 65 minutes of game and challenges. Challenges, it could be skills, okay, it's a kind of thing. And at 12 years old, it's a more traditional competition, home away, but no promotion, no relegation. And it's, at least in this category, there is the breaking coach, the break coach, to speak, in fact, okay, after 15 minutes.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So in other words, coaches can only talk they're supposed to be quiet.
Exactly. The problem with the competition, of course, is the consequences. And it's related, in fact, to what is a coach? What does it mean to be a coach? And is it someone, we consider that it's someone who has received at least an information. So he's able to take care safely of the children, to lead an animated training session, and if needed, to lead the team in competition, a very soft competition. The competition, it's after. Okay, it's very important. The second point is how he's recognized as a good coach. By winning games in 12 years old competition. So who is going to play? Big boy, late bloomer. Okay? And the third point is how is this valorization? Is it a hobby? Is it a part of his incomes? So who is going to play? It's the same. And I think the most important is the fourth, is he's the coach, but for the interest of who? The interest of the youth, his own interest, the interest of the clubs, the school, the university, the association, whatever you want. And in fact, the interest could be opposite. So it's the reason why we think that the coach education plan must solve, in fact, all those issues.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like just an insistence on development over winning at the very early ages, which coaches can easily fall into this. I mean, it sounds like you, and maybe you could talk about this, Nico, as well. I mean, how do we, these coaches who think their job is to help their team of 8-year-olds or 10-year-olds win on Saturday, they really think that's the goal. That's how they're measured by success. As opposed to keeping the kid in the game, having them develop, turning into a lifelong love of the sport, turning into a fan of the sport, all the good stuff that comes from. How do we turn that around? Or is it impossible because this is America and we just are stuck on winning and everything?
No. we are, but that's, you know, winning is a part of the sport.
Yeah.
So let's not deny that.
Yes.
You know, you play to win.
Competition is good.
But actually, when you're looking at these coaches, their focus must be development. So actually, and I'm quite optimistic because I see a change in our paradigm shift, you know, at being more player-centered. So in the past we were more coach-centered, and now we are more player-centered. So I see that change, but actually it has to do with the lens. We are looking at soccer, clubs, and players, and sometimes there's a conflict. Because when you're looking at a club and players based on business and economical reasons, that's different when you're looking at players because of player development and long participants into the sport. So actually, to have that shared lens, that's how we are going to change, I would say.
A shared lens, but what about consistent standard? I mean, clear and consistent standards. So parents, for instance, can know which clubs are abiding by best practices. Is there, I mean, for community clubs in France, are those standards articulated and enforced? Are there supports for it? And I'd like to get your thought, Nico, about is that something we could do here in the U.S.?
Yep.
Yeah, in France, in the national club level, it's compulsory. In fact, the system, you need a special coach education. But for grassroots at the French Football Federation, we give the clubs, we call it label. In fact, it's the recognition of the fact.
Certificate.
Yeah, certificate, yeah. And because the standards are, for example, you need 2 coaches for 10 players, etc. Those kinds of coaches with this special education. And in fact, it's not compulsory, but when the clubs receive this certificate, you put it on the wall just for the parents to see that we are recognized by the federation. And it's a way to help the clubs to build their project by, of course, and the cornerstone, of course, is the coach education.
Gotcha. Very quickly, 30 seconds.
So 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
So,
can we do this?
It's for him.
Oh, there go my 30 seconds.
No, very good.
So no, standards and certification. That's actually also something. So we introduced the player development initiatives. We did that more or less in 2015, and we implemented them in 2017. That's also looking at small-sided games, but also playing time for players. So that's one of the standards. And our future plans are, you know, to also create that certification, so that parents can look at, okay, this club is meeting the standards, and that's also based on the certification of the federation. So it's comparable with the French Federation.
Excellent, excellent. So I'd like to actually, Slido time. Pull out your phones if you can. We're going to run through a couple questions. I'm obviously the guy who likes to use Slido here at this conference. So, go to, Project Play. You guys know how to do this now, right? And on a scale of 1 to 5, how optimistic are you that the U.S. can win a men's World Cup? I got to make that clear because the women do just fine, don't they? A men's World Cup. And let's see how the voting turns out. Well, I can't see, so I don't know what it's saying. Are we seeing results up there? Not yet. Yes. Ah. Is it positive? It's fluctuating. Okay. All right. Well, that's a good sense of things. Now let me ask you the second question on a scale of 1 to 5 again. How important is youth development and participation in winning that World Cup, which we would all love to see happen? They're not showing it, so I guess youth development doesn't matter. They don't want us to reveal the answer. It's up now. 60 seconds. Well, terrific. Yeah, I just wanted to end that way because I think we should end it on an optimistic note. I think I'd like to thank both of you for being part of the panel here and really look forward to what the U.S. Soccer Federation and its affiliate bodies of soccer engaged in the youth space are going to be doing moving forward. So again, a round of applause for our panelists. And with that, I'd like to bring up Mary.
All right, interesting stuff. And it's a great start to this midday session, and that's a perfect segue into our next Project Play Champions announcement for the day. It used to be called What's Your Play? Now it's Project Play Champions, and it's organizations that have committed to making a new, specific, and meaningful action that model and are consistent with the goals of Project Play. They were selected through a competitive process, and after today will be recognized online and have use of a special Project Play Champion logo, as well as other perks. Your program has more information about how to apply for your organization. First, I'd like to invite Ryan Mooney, the Chief Soccer Officer at the U.S. Soccer Federation, up on stage. He's going to announce the Federation's new commitment. Ryan.
Thank you, Mary. I share in Tom's disappointment about the men not being in Russia this summer, but you mentioned it very briefly, but I don't know if everyone heard. Our women's national team just recently qualified for the Women's World Cup in France, being hosted next summer, so we'll be looking forward to a fourth World Cup championship with that team led by Jill Ellis. So now to the privilege of being able to be here and be part of our announcement. U.S. Soccer is very excited about being committed and aligned to the 8 plays of Project Play. For us, this commitment starts with the quality of coach education. In addition to that, consistent with some of the conversation in the panel, it's not just about quality, but also the quantity and the need to drive at the size and the scope of this nation. For us, the ability to do so and deliver those types of services in an affordable and accessible manner is critical to success. In addition to that, the support and doing in conjunction with our members is also pivotal. In addition to a digital coaching center, an online learning platform we have working through those networks that Nico referenced to help drive towards over 300,000 newly licensed coaches. In addition to that, looking at a subset of over 250,000 of those licenses being specific to the grassroots level. That's our goal by the end of 2022. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ryan. We're also pleased to have Chris Moore, the CEO for U.S. Youth Soccer. He's with us today. He's got an announcement to make.
Hi, everybody. Thank you to the Aspen Institute's Project Play for having U.S. Youth Soccer represented and being part of Project Play and being a champion over the past few months. U.S. Youth Soccer is the largest youth sports organization in the country. We have 3 million youth players. We are also the largest member of U.S. Soccer Federation, who I'm happy to be here with as well. We have a few commitments. U.S. Youth Soccer will implement a program to drive adoption of the 8 Project Play strategies across our membership. We have 55 member state associations that deliver our programs at the grassroots. We're committed to working with these state association members to encourage multi-sport play among youth, promote the Project Play coach training resources, support Project Play's parent education programs, and really add the voice of kids, as you heard a lot about earlier today, throughout everything we do, including having kids represented at our national summits and annual meetings and symposia and our board meetings. And finally, U.S. Youth Soccer is committed to being an advocate for free play and revitalizing in-town leagues in our programming. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chris. For our final Project Play champion announcement of the morning, I'm pleased to welcome Darren Steele, the CEO of USA Bobsled and Skeleton, there he is, which is a longtime supporter of Project Play. Hi. I'm good. Some of you may remember the bobsled that was here at the summit last year. All right, come on in.
Thanks. All right, so I am the CEO for USA Bobsled and Skeleton, and I'm also a member of ACES, which is the Association of Chief Executives for Sport. And that organization has 60 NGBs represented by their chief executives. That includes 44 of the 47 Olympic NGBs, so it does have quite a reach. And on behalf of my colleagues, I am pleased to share that ACES has agreed to drive the adoption of policies and procedures that encourage and promote sport sampling among youth. ACES will use the Project Play checklist for national sport organizations and enlist the member organizations to evaluate their current practices as well as commit to developing strategies for increasing multi-sport participation and opportunities over the next year. And because a lot of us need help, Aspen Institute has agreed to help out with resource materials and technical guidance, and it's pretty exciting that we're getting behind this as a kind of Olympic family, so I'm proud to be a part of that. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Darren. And thank you to all our Project Play champions for making these new commitments to making quality sport opportunities accessible to all children, regardless of their zip code or their ability. Next, I'd like to bring up Caitlin Morris, the General Manager of Global Community Impact for Nike, a four-time supporter of the Project Play Summit, to introduce our next keynote speaker. Just a reminder, because I know how you people are going to get about our next keynote speaker. Can you keep your phones down a little low if you're taking pictures so you don't block the live stream? All right, Caitlin, come on up.
So at Nike, we passionately believe in the power of sport to unleash human potential. That's why we're partners of Project Play, because we really want every kid to have the opportunity to access a positive experience in play and sport. And you're in for a treat this afternoon, because you're going to hear from two gentlemen who have not just led through the power of sport in their own lives, but have inspired others. So the first is Kevin Carroll. Kevin Carroll's love of sport and his belief in dreams has taken him all over the world. From living in Germany and working in the military to when he came to Nike, his belief, his magic was so great, we didn't have a job for him. We just told him to come and we'd make something up. And he made something up and made dreams happen for 7 years. And then after that, I had a chance to know him in his role as Kevin the Catalyst. And we worked together in 2014 on something called Learn Your Game. Learn Your Game was a program that we did at World Basketball Festival for inner city Chicago kids. And in it, you know, these kids thought they were coming, because it was World Basketball Festival, they thought they were coming to a program that was going to teach them skills and drills around basketball, and they left with life plans. And I remember this one kid with his notebook. He'd lost it, he couldn't find it. He's like, I have to find my notebook. It's my roadmap for my future. And that's what Kevin does. And he inspires not just hundreds of kids in Chicago, but probably hundreds and thousands of young people around the world. So one of the young people to enter his orbit, not so young now, but was Kobe Bryant. They go way back, and I know you're going to hear about that. But Kobe is now, first and foremost, a father and a coach to his daughter's middle school basketball team. He is a storyteller. 5 years ago, when we first launched the Project Play report, he got on stage with President Clinton and talked about how he loved basketball so much that he used to roll balls to socks and shoot fake hoops. Well, then he made a movie about it and got an Oscar. And finally, he is a legend. But I believe that he won't just be a basketball legend. Kobe, with his work ethic and his passion and his belief, he'll be legendary in everything he does. So please welcome up Kobe Bryant and Kevin Carroll.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, all right.
I know, they already hit us.
Already here. Cool. What's up, my man?
You. So we were talking about, and it was really actually, I said they should have a camera back in the tunnel here because we were dropping pearls of insights and wisdom, and I talked about crossing a threshold. When you're preparing to perform, when you're doing a task that is meaningful and matters to you, you have a choice to cross a threshold, to be where you are. So I want to challenge everybody in this room to be here right now. 20 minutes of opportunity to level set, to affirm, reaffirm, spark, ignite, instigate. So I thought I would start off with a little poem from James Michener that really epitomizes my meaning of play. The master in the art of living makes little distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his information and his recreation, his love and his religion. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence, leaving others to decide whether he is working or playing. See, to him, he's always doing both. And shouldn't that be our quest, to blur the line between our work and play and find joy in every one of our endeavors? So I welcome you to this conversation about the meaning of play. And this is an amazing moment for two Philly guys to get together. So just understand, if we get a little loud and energetic, I'm not angry, I'm from Philly. That's how that works. So
we go way back, like way back. He was a trainer for the Sixers, and I was at Lower Merion High School. I mean, going back to when I was 15 years old, 14 years old. And the Sixers at the time weren't very good. I mean, they didn't have a lot of hard work.
We weren't even trusting the process then.
Yeah. So, but Kevin had like these revolutionary ideas and concepts for training and recovery and all sorts of stuff. And I was like, dude, I'm hanging here. Use them on me. We'll work out together. And we did some crazy. He would come in and boast, I've never had a hard workout on the pool. Well, come with me. And he brought it up last night at the reception, right? Oh, it was terrible. Last night he brought it up at the reception. He said, do you remember that thing you used to do to me in the pool, and bungee cord and tied to the starting block and have me run out to where you were, and then you get further out and I had to run further? He said, I had never been so tired and more thrilled. It was beautifully awful. Yeah. There it was, right there. Yes, I love those oxymorons, a wonderful dilemma, if you will. So I want to start our conversation with going back to a conversation I had this morning with the youth panel. Yeah. And there was one moment, and you brought it up when we were just getting mic'd up in the back, about Zoe. And you asked her, how do you deal with loss or something difficult? And you said something to me back there that was so amazing, because you said, why don't adults listen to that more? What was that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, she was very matter of fact about it, and said she doesn't dwell on it. She looks at the mistakes that were made, she makes the corrections, and she moves on to the next one. It's like, well, okay, well, how easy is that? Right? But I feel like most of the time as adults, we overcomplicate things. And emotionally, we tend to get in our own way a lot. And so I think for us and how we guide our children, through their days as young athletes, some of it has to do with just protecting that childlike innocence that they have and their view of the world. And so they don't grow up and get in their own way, but continue to have that mentality and have that mindset, because it's such a pure one.
But here's one thing I know to be true. They do what they see.
Yeah.
They do what they see. And so they want to impress you, right? And they want you to be impressed by them. So they're modeling you. So if you're on your device at the dinner table, guess what they're going to do? They want to be on their device at the dinner table, because I'm doing what you're doing, and it must be important. And so I think the more that we start to understand, we are modeling for the next generation. Your conversation with them and the way you approach them, and you said you really enjoy talking to youth because you're coaching them right now, which I think is really amazing. So it was easy for you to talk with them.
Real easy, man. I speak to 12-year-olds every single day because I coach my daughter's team. And it's funny, you got to watch like all the little things that you say. You know, you got to say what you mean, do what you say. You know, like a friend of mine coaches a boys team. Tells the boys, all right, 5 more minutes, we get water break. 5 minutes go by, 10 minutes go by, 15 minutes, no water break. Boys don't say anything. Right? I had him come and coach my girls. He goes, 5 minutes water break. 5 minutes go by, the girl's like, hold up. You said it was 5 minutes. And I just sat back and I said, dude, you lost the team already. Lost the team already, right? Mean what you say. Right?
But they'll hold you accountable.
They'll hold you accountable.
They will hold
it's
you
not
accountable.
good enough to just say, you know what, do this.
Yes. So
boys be like, yeah, I'm doing it. Girls like, I'll do it, but like, why though? Like,
how you do the little things is how you do all things,
yeah.
right? How you do the little things is how you do all things, right? And I think the more that we start to think about it and it's all about the details, I think that's really important, right? And so, but I love that idea, you know, do what you say.
Yeah, man. And you have to measure your words because they're very impactful. You can't just, you know, throw out a comment here and there, boy or girl, it doesn't matter. You can't throw something out there. You have to be very measured. You have to understand the sense of responsibility that you have.
Words matter.
Sure do. Words
matter. So we're going to go on a little journey, all right? And so I'll only say this one time because this is a Philly thing, right? So I've never called you Kobe.
Right.
I've always called you Bean, right?
Yep.
Because it's always been that, right? It's always been Bean, which is your middle name, right? But in Philly...
Don't ask. Don't ask.
Yeah, just don't ask. It's just a thing, right?
It is, it actually is.
So I will call you by your proper name up here, but just know that I'm projecting Bean every time.
I've never heard you say Kobe a day in my life.
No, right?
Yeah, no.
Never. So when you were growing up in Italy, and the idea of a different sport culture, but also you didn't start off with basketball.
Right.
What was that like for you? How did you make those adjustments? How did you actually fit in? How did you find a way to fit in?
Well, playing soccer. You know, most of the kids, you go to the park and they're out there playing soccer all day long, right? And so that's where I made friends. I mean, I couldn't speak the language at the time, but I could understand the sport. I could understand the rules of the sport. And that's how you start making friends. And they start, although they're speaking Italian, they're using hand gestures and all this, that, and the other. And it helped me catch up to the language pretty quickly.
So one of the things that I realized, and I've said this many times, we all speak ball.
Mm-hmm.
It's a language that we all get, right? Because there's a universal gesture.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Right?
Right.
But of course, like, if you really like, if you ain't getting on my foot right, I'm not reaching for that, right?
Right, if you're open.
Right? Doesn't matter where you go in the world, people understand that. But the fact that you were already learning, and I think this actually may have formed a lot of the way you approach basketball. If you're learning from the game of football, the global game of football, soccer, and you're learning movements and everything there, how did that actually influence the way you played basketball when you first started out playing it?
Well, it trains the brain to look at things, in sets of threes instead of twos. I'm being very basketball geeky, but I can't help it. So like in basketball, what you'll see is you see the game being played with 1 or 2 players. It's pick and roll, there's give and go, right? There's that kind of action. In soccer, you're playing in threes all the time. You're playing in triangles all the time. So it's not just my communication with you, but it's how this communication and the ball movement between us opens up something for that person. So it's not good enough for me to just simply think of you, but I have to think of boom, 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 boom. And that's how the game is played. And so when I played basketball, it helped me at an early age start seeing the game 3 moves ahead instead of just 2.
So you know what I was laughing about, because I played soccer.
Yeah.
But you're talking about triangles.
Yep.
Did you hear that? Just drop that pearl for y'all.
Yeah.
Triangles,
can't
right?
escape
So
the
you
triangle.
can't escape the triangle, right?
Yes.
And we should, out of respect, Tex Winter, who was a very important person in your life, right, just recently passed away. And so us bringing up the triangle, I know that always makes you think of him. And we'll discuss the influence of coaches. But you did mention one thing, and I think maybe actually this is a nice segue. You met a lot of coaches when you lived in Europe that were from the U.S.
Yeah, the timing.
How did that all happen?
Just timing. Like when I was growing up in Europe, a lot of the top coaches had spent a lot of time in Europe trying to expand the game. Right? So you had great coaches, the Red Holtzmans of the world, the Red Auerbachs, UB Browns, all these great coaches would come and do coaching clinics. So when I was growing up, it was like everything was fresh in the coaches' minds. It's like I was getting all the basic stuff, footwork, tactics and strategy. We used to have practices, we played full court 5-on-5, no dribbling. You're like, what? You know, but I got the basics from all these great coaches that came over to teach the game. So.
How old were you then?
8.
How about that?
8 years old.
How about that? 8 years old. But you know what? You actually mentioned this at the reception. Tiki-taki, tiki-taki, right? FC Barcelona. But they were teaching you that in basketball. Right? Moving the ball, moving the ball, moving the ball.
Right.
So isn't that interesting that the global game of football had that influence on you that moved then into learning from coaches who were also teaching you a similar strategy? So you were already starting to form an opinion, a point of view about how you wanted to play the game, but also how you wanted to be coached.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, too, is they didn't give me anything that wasn't absolutely necessary to have. Right, so it wasn't like they put me in front of a cone and then forced me to dribble with a basketball and then 5 tennis balls and then like do all this spinning and all this, you know, because it's unnecessary, right? They taught me how to think the game first, right? How to pass with left hand, right hand, finish left hand, right hand, how to shoot the ball properly, right? Teach you how to play with others. And then when I came back to the States at 15, I saw these kids doing all this stuff, and I was like, dang, I gotta learn how to do that. You know what I mean?
Hill League, Sunny Hill League.
Right, Sunny Hill League.
League.
So then it was just, you know, putting the icing on the cake. But the coaches gave me the cake.
Yeah. I'd like to say you put some hot sauce on there.
Put some hot sauce on it,
some hot sauce on your game,
That's right? That's what I tell my kids every day. I do. They make a move. They'll do like a little in and out move. I'm like, yeah, that was good. Now put some hot sauce on that. And they're like, well, yeah, just put some hot sauce on it. You know, like boom, boom, like that. Spice that thing up.
Spice it up a little bit, right?
Spice it up, yeah.
So we're having this amazing conversation about think globally, play locally, right? And as we start to think about play, how would you define play for you?
Play is doing what you love to do. I mean, your poem was so beautiful because it's so true. I mean, for everybody in this room, it feels like you don't work a day in your life when you're doing what it is that you love to do. You know, so to me, play and hard work are one and the same. I didn't realize basketball was hard work until it became a job, and I started looking around. A lot of the players weren't playing as often as I was, and that's when I realized, oh, there's a difference for some between work and play. But for me, they're one and the same.
And I think that's one of the endeavors that we're trying to introduce to youth, right? Is to find opportunities to sustain your play throughout your entire life and never lose that joy. And I think that's so important. But let's go back to your coaches, because I think they are a source of either loving or hating sport. And so you mentioned the coaches who came over to Europe, the influence that they had at 8 years old. But then when you came to the States and you entered Lower Merion High School.
Had a great coach.
And that coach was?
His name is Greg Downer.
Greg Downer.
He was recently inducted into the Philadelphia Hall of Fame. And he's just a phenomenal coach. I mean, he was there like, listen, you want to get to that level, you got to stay at practice late. Right? You want to get here early? Come on and get here early. I open up the gym for you early. 4 a.m.? It's like, oh, sure, yeah, cool. Right? But he was always on me about teaching the game. Out in high school, you know, I could dominate because I was taller and all this other stuff. But say, no, you got to get a mid-range game. Right? It's not good enough just to shoot the three and post kids up. You got to be able to get here, stop, and pop. Pull up for the jumper, runners, all that good stuff. And he's just a phenomenal coach, man. Very fortunate. I
think one of the other interesting things is the coaches that you met in Europe, right, teaching you the triangle, if you will, 3-man ball, right? But they had a style that was common, right? So you mentioned this last night, that all the coaches that you've had had similar traits. What are some of those traits?
Well, the most important one is that they were never condescending, and they were never abusive with how they taught the game. Right? They spoke to tactics, and if you had a question, they encouraged it. Right? So they wanted you thinking more. So it wasn't a coach that's, listen, I'm going to do all the thinking for you. Go out here, do this, do that, do this, do that. I never had coaches like that. It was more like, you know, here's the idea. Now, what are you reading from that? You know, they would always say our job is to give you the fundamentals. And from those fundamentals, you can then have the ability to go out and problem solve.
Within that word is fun.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, you know, as kids, isn't it? It's the fun part is just being curious.
Yes.
Right? And then my little daughter does that all day long. She's like, what are those little holes in the wall? Let me see.
Yes.
No, don't touch that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Oh, what is this? This is my mom's lipstick. What is it? No, don't touch. But it's just a curiosity. And every time you stop her, she just starts laughing. Right? And as parents and as coaches, we can't remove the curiosity.
But that also opens up, that opens up imagination, inventiveness during the game, right? Problem solving in the midst of things happening, right? And I know imagination, it was mentioned by Caitlin, right, with the ball made of socks, imagining a hoop. But you're a big, big believer in imagination. I know Harry Potter is a big thing for you, right? Those of you who didn't know that, he's all about the Hogwarts. He's all about it, right?
You can quiz me if you want.
Yes.
We can go at it.
It's real.
Oh, it's real.
It's real.
It's real.
But what role does imagination play in sport and play and kids staying in the game?
Well, God, I gotta tell you, man, imagination is key because you have to be able to envision it and dream it first, right? And so when I was a kid growing up and I would be out playing by myself or whether I was in the house with my dad's tube socks, I would envision it in my mind, I would really be inside of the Forum. You know, I'd really be going against the Celtics. Like, that's what I'm seeing, you know, and to have that imagination, to put yourself there and to be able to, you know, do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and do all these things. It's really important to try to hold on to. And in this day and age, sports has become very structured, right, which is also concerning because sports are very structured. It's practice time, club teams. So we don't have time to bring that imagination out. And it's a really big concern, so much so that in practice, at least once a week, the first 20 minutes of practice, I have just imagination play. Where kids get to a basket and they just imagine. Just imagine, just play. Just take 20 minutes and just imagine what it is, right? And you look at them and they're doing this thing and I'm like, man, I wonder what they're seeing in their head. You know, like I wonder what it is that they're imagining, but it's for them.
Yes, and I think we talk about unstructured play and the importance of it and free play, and the more we can find moments to avail that and offer that to young people, I think we're going to elevate their ability to deal with difficult, right? Because you mentioned that they don't know how to problem solve. When they deal with some adversity on the court is a reflection of what they're going to deal with in life.
Well, this is, I'll go back to what George R.R. Martin told me. I asked him, because I was writing this novel, and I was having issues with the parents, you know, stay, go, you know. And he goes, I said, George, you know, in all your stories, you know, do the parents have to die? You know what I'm saying? Anybody here watch Game of Thrones? And I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but the parents, I mean, now, so do the parents have to die? And he goes, yeah. And I go, really? He goes, well, yeah, they either have to die or be a part of the problem, but it's got to be one of those two, right? And so, and I say that to say, it's a terrible analogy anyway, but bear with me. I say that to say that as parents of young athletes and coaches, if we are constantly providing the answers for them, they will not figure out how to problem solve on their own. So our job is to simply give them the tools to fish and then let them go out there and fish. Right? And let them figure things out. We can't, like after the game, you get in the car with your kid and you're like, hey man, you should have did this, or you should have done that, or you should have done this. And you're just like, oh my God, right? Step away, let them process it, let them figure it out.
And I think having that level of autonomy, right, you build self-confidence, right? And the more self-confidence, you can walk through the world with a level of, I can handle this. And I think that's a way that we can deal with a lot of the issues we're having with young people, right, is that they don't know how to deal with difficult and they're really struggling with that, but they got to gain that confidence.
Yeah.
So look, we could talk up here for a bit longer, right? Clock is screaming at me right now, right? I'm like, really? We've been up here that long?
Yeah.
Right? But I'm going to ignore that for just a second.
Ignore away. Hey, I'm
Tom
here.
is sitting right there. It's all love up here. This doesn't happen every day, so we going to Philly hijack this joint, right? And I threw John out there, right? So you know.
Yeah, Dawn.
What they don't know about John?
Yeah, Dawn Stanley. You guys know who Dawn Stanley is? So there was one game, we had a pickup game. We were playing against a bunch of pros, like all the top pros. And I'm in the gym, and I'm 16. And Dawn's in the gym, and she's the only woman in the gym. And they put us on the same team. And so I'm sitting down, Dawn comes up to me and she goes, hey, let's kick their ass. I was like, let's do it, let's do it. And we ran the table. So for 3 hours straight, me and Dawn proceeded to kick the crap out of these professional basketball players. Yeah, I haven't seen her in a very, very long time, but my God, that was
Coach
fun.
Staley is no joke at South Carolina.
Oh, she don't
I've
play.
watched her on the bench, and it's like, I remember, and it looked like Coach Staley at Hawk Hill, right?
Yeah, she don't play.
She does not play. Dobbins Tech.
Yep.
Dobbins Tech. So we've been talking about coaches, we've been talking about opportunity, and there was a tool that was launched by Nike, right? How to coach kids.
Yep.
And within that, I love the fact that it's only 30 minutes and intensive. But within that, what would you hope coaches could take away from using that or going through that 30 minutes?
Well, you know, look, I think it's important to understand that it's a constant learning experience, right? We can't discount the importance of coaches, right? And so if you ask Phil Jackson, how do you get better as a coach? He'll give you a very specific answer about what he reads, what he studies, the psychology, human development, how to deal with players that have experienced different things in their childhood. I mean, he'll go and he'll read about his players and how they grew up and whatever trauma they may have suffered, and he studies up on how to connect with them, right? So the level of importance that we have as coaches and as parents cannot be understated. And so to have a platform and to continue to be curious ourselves and learn about the best way to connect, to reach, to help, to inspire, to inform is extremely important, extremely important.
But I think the more that coaches feel empowered, right, and they know that they have tools at their disposal, they can advance this next generation of leaders, makers, doers, and dreamers. I think it's important. And we have to stop asking the question, what's wrong with you? We need to ask the question, what happened to you? I said it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that true?
That's true.
Right? Because many times it's something that has informed that.
Sure.
Right? It's not what's wrong with you. Right? It's what happened to you. And the more that we can get to that, it's important. So, I told you how we're going to end this. First, share with the audience one thing you'd like for them to take away from the 2 moments that you've had here on stage. What would be one nugget, a pearl, or something that you'd like for them to take away from the 2 moments with the youth panel and this conversation?
Well, I mean, I think for the youth panel, I think it's on us to try to teach kids what excellence looks like and feels like. You know, they all have dreams. Zoe wants to be a doctor. You know, they all have things that they want to accomplish. And it's our job not to tell them to have perspective or to be realistic, but instead it's to give them the tools to help them chase that dream. And along that process, they'll learn what excellence looks like, because now that's something that this is the journey that they want to be on, right? It's what they love to do. And through that process, they'll understand the blend between work and play. And I think that's the best thing that we can teach them. That's what excellence looks like. And for us as adults, I think it's important for us to get out of the way.
Get out the way.
Sometimes the most important thing you can do is just to observe. Just to observe. I have a player on the team, and when she gets nervous, she just does like this. She taps her. I'm not going to say stop being nervous. I just let her tap away, right? And you just watch, and then you can guide. Right? But I think it's important for us just to get out of the way, observe, listen, learn, and guide.
And model excellence. I think that was wonderful. If your dream doesn't scare you, it's not big enough.
Yeah.
It should scare you.
It's true.
It should get you up in the middle like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just said that to Kobe Bryant. And he's going to check on me.
Yep.
So lastly, and I want you to speak directly to our audience, what's your call to action?
Learn. That is the call to action. Learn. Learn, 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 learn. Same way Phil learns his players, I think we should challenge each other to do the same thing. Because like I said, you cannot underestimate the importance that we have as coaches and the importance that sports play in the lives of our young children. It's the greatest metaphor we have in life, sport, right? I mean, you can tell kids all you want, be a great teammate, how to deal with anxiety, how to deal with pressure, but sports puts them in an environment on a daily basis in which they are challenged by those exact things. And emotionally, they have to navigate themselves through it. So we have to learn what it is that they can be going through. This way we can help guide them through these things. And I think that's the call to action.
And so I think the more that we recognize we have an opportunity to maximize opportunity. Every time we're in these moments, are you here with this challenge, a personal challenge? I'm going to take 1, 2, 3 nuggets away, but also I'm going to be the storyteller when I go back for those who didn't get to attend. So if you show up here on behalf of those who aren't here, right, you're learning for them, it changes your whole perspective while you're here. Mm-hmm. It will change your whole perspective. You'll show up differently. Be where you are. Listen, learn, lead, and show up. Our goal is to rise up and raise the game of others. Are we good? Are we good?
Good.
My
good
man,
money.
50 grand. You know what's up. You know what's up.
Oh, boy. Thank you, Kobe. Thank you. Kevin, I feel like I've been to a revival meeting, man. Thank you, man. That's outstanding. All right. Lunch is next, and if you haven't yet taken your photo with the Stanley Cup, you got to do it before lunch is over because it's moving on to Capitol Hill. It's a very busy cup. So it's also gorgeous. And that great moment when the Stanley Cup winners all get to skate with it, that's like my favorite. That is my favorite moment. Like, that's the greatest congratulatory moment in sports. Anyway, so Stanley's still here, but, you know, don't delay. There's afternoon strategy sessions on encourage sports sampling and this is very cool, the world's first healthy sport index. Very, very interesting. Designed for development restructuring competition for better outcomes, emphasize prevention, and what's for the U.S. Olympic movement. That's going to be very cool, too. Our new Fast Break Ideas sessions, it all starts on the 7th and 8th floors at 12:40, so you got a little bit of time. Check your agenda and the screens around the museum for details. In the meantime, be sure to check out Kevin Carroll's ball exhibit in the next room and the Stanley Cup. So take off. Take off. We'll see you back here soon.